All right, what's happening, guys? Hope you are doing fantastic. So this training, I'm going to go over something we call the gap, right? It's getting you from where you are today to where you want to be. So when you think about this, what I want you to think about is who you are right now as a man, right? Obviously a great guy, we both know that. But there's always an image in our head of where we want to go to, especially if there's things that aren't going as well as we think they should or could be going. Now, this can go through all five territories: yourself, your health, your wealth, your relationships, and your business. And in our mind's eye, especially when things aren't going as well, in our mind's eye, we have this vision of where things could be, right? We start here in this area, and that vision is up here, right? Maybe it's attaining something in your business or more wealth and financially. But it could also be in your relationship. Maybe you're in a sexless marriage, or maybe you're arguing with your wife all the time or your kids, right? We look at these 2 points, there's a gap between those. And that's the secret. Filling that gap is really what it's all about. When you can identify and fill that gap, you can start really making progress. That's really quick progress. I mean, think about it in your business, right? If you know, for example, what exactly a problem is in your business, the gap, and then how to solve it, you can directly correlate that with exponential growth within your business, right? Maybe it's a distribution channel. Maybe you figured out that it's an employee, right? And you can get rid of them quickly. This is why, not finding the gap, I should say, is why a lot of people start repeating the same patterns over and over again. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to give you some practical tools. You should have gotten the PDF. It's a fillable PDF I created for you that you guys should have. And I want you to work through this. This is designed to be a workshop, a really short mini workshop for you, just to get some clarity. And I want you to get at least one win as we come about this. So give me a second. I'm going to share my screen so you can see that. And we'll jump right into it, guys. All right, without further ado, hopefully you can see my screen here. Just go ahead and let me know if you can, for those that are watching this live. Awesome. So we're going to talk about, like I said, getting from where you are to where you want to be. And as we look at that, we want to get really clear. Now, if you've been around me for any length of time, I'm really big on getting the facts, the data, the clarity. With clarity gives you a sense of knowing where you can go next, right? Because when you have optics, you can start making some serious decisions. So what I want you to do now is fill this portion out, right? What are the facts in your five territories? So let's take yourself, for example. What are the facts there? The health, your wealth, your relationships, and your business. And so when you're looking at this, really get honest. Don't beat yourself up, but get clear. Now I'm going to go over a few examples for you, and these are ones I threw just together really quickly. So excuse anything that's on here, but we look at the facts. Here is somebody that I just pulled out, and what they're saying here, and you can read this, but I'll read it to you. In self, they're saying, well, the facts is, when I get free time, I just don't know what to do with myself to truly have fun. Now, I've heard this so many times for guys where they're dying for a day off and they get a day off and they're like, oh, what do I do? Well, facts about health. Where are you now? Well, maybe that person is 20 pounds overweight or whatever it is for you in your health. Wealth. I've lost connection with my wife, right? Remember, wealth isn't just about money. It's having abundance in your life, spiritual abundance in your relationships. But for this person, they're using the connection with themselves. And the relationships. My wife and I have grown apart and we're talking about getting a divorce. That's a fact for this person. And business. My business is at the same point it was 2 years ago. That's horrible news, right? At least in my eyes, it is. So I want you to get really clear. Go ahead and hit pause if you want to. Obviously, if you're live with me right now, go ahead and just stick with this and we can go back. But get honest with yourself. If you're going to sit here and do an exercise like this or spend some time, I always say, don't make this educational masturbation. Actually take the time to get something from this. I want you to have something that you can take and use later on this as well. So go ahead and fill this out and we look at it. Now, once we have the facts, the actual truth, and remembering, as we fill this out, we lie to ourselves more than anybody else. So once we have the facts, we want to take the next step, right? What we want to know is, how does this make me feel? Right? Look at these. How does it make you really feel? I know as men, we don't tap into our feelings quite as much, or typically we don't. I know it's something I've struggled with in the past. But how does it make you feel when you think about this, when you sit with this thing? So I'm going to take a couple here as my examples, but I'll use health. Being 20 pounds overweight, how does that really make you feel? Don't give me a BS answer. Get to the root of it. If you really want to make these changes in your life, get to the root of it. Now, if you don't, you want to play half-assed, that's up to you. But I'm going to recommend you go ahead and stop this and go watch some reruns of Friends or the Kardashians or whatever else it is that you do, right? Because this is not going to help you. You need to get clarity. You need to be real and honest with yourself. How does it make you feel? And when there's a gap, no matter what that gap is, there's a little uneasiness, right? There's a little tension there whenever that gap is created going through there. Now, here's an example, right? The facts. So I'll use a couple of these, right? Self. When I get my free time, I don't know what to do for myself to truly have fun. Well, this person asks, how does it make them feel? What it saddens me that I don't remember how to have fun. I complain about not having time for myself, but when I do have time for myself, I just mess around and waste the time. Now, I know I could relate to this one back almost 10 years ago when I was going through this. I remember having a day off and going, shit, I don't know what to do. And so I would just waste that time surfing the internet or whatever it may be. It was a waste. So things to think about here. Maybe this is with your wife, right? The fact for this person, and again, this is, these are things I hear all the time from men, business leaders when I'm talking to them. But this person, a typical thing is my wife and I have grown apart and we're talking about getting a divorce. That sucks. Let's be real. You didn't get married with the plan of getting divorced, right? You got married with the idea that you were going to be the opposite. You were going to beat the trend. So how does this make this guy feel? Well, he's lonely, depressed. He feels like he failed. He doesn't feel like he's good enough, right? Not man enough. It doesn't feel like he's actually met the challenge. He wonders if she's already cheating on him. And at times, really, he doesn't blame her, right? Because he's not stepping up. And he just wants to know the truth, right? And it consumes him, his thoughts, his energy, right? Probably bleeds over into his business, probably drains everything in him. So you want to get really real. You see this example, we want to get to the point of it. And I did this quickly just so I could give you guys some examples, right? And just came up with things I commonly hear from men. But go ahead and put down what's right for you, what's true for you on these. Because we're also going to talk about patterns and routines, right? What are the patterns and routines you've fallen into, right? Again, I'll go back, I'll show you some more examples, but what are the patterns and routines that got you here? You didn't get here by chance, right? You didn't get to this call by chance, but you didn't get to these facts and the 5 territories by chance either. This happened based on your actions, your repeated actions. Now, I know it's not all your fault, right? But you play a role and you want to look at this and see what role you really do play. So let's look at an example again for this guy. Again, we'll go back to health, right? He's 20 pounds overweight. He's figured out. And what's his routine? Well, he starts diets and workout programs only to stop a few weeks into them. And he eats junk food. It's a pattern and routine, even though he knows it's better. Back to relationships. He wakes up, gets breakfast ready, and he heads to work, right? No interaction with his wife there. And he goes to bed at different times than she does. Kind of hard to have some intimacy there, right? He argues about the same shit. He uses porn to get off rather than having sex with his wife. These are things I commonly hear from guys, right? These are things that you want to look at too. So get into those patterns and routines of things that you're doing on a regular basis. Now, the things about patterns and routines is they're hard to see. Right? They're hard to see because they become part of what you just do, right? What is it that you're doing on a day-to-day basis? So one of my routines is I get up in the morning, usually before my alarm, but my alarm goes off at 4:20 in the morning. And first thing I do is I grab a cup of coffee. As I grab that cup of coffee, I slam a giant mason jar full of water. And I grab my coffee and I walk down into this area of my house, this floor of my house, and I sit on the couch and I read, right? It's a pattern. It's a routine. I don't think about it really. I just do it. But you're talking about how'd you get to a certain place, that's one of those things I do. It's just subconscious. I just end up basically on that couch over there reading and taking notes in my journal. So you get the idea. Just remember, patterns and routines sometimes are hard to discover here going through. So now that we've got that done, really want to know what your stories and attitudes are. What are your stories and attitudes around your facts? What are you telling yourself? Now, most people, in fact, most men, when I talk to them, if I say you're playing the victim role, they get pissed, right? No, I'm not a victim, Doug. It's BS. The truth is, ... And they go through their story. right? And the story tends to be a victim story, right? A victim of circumstance, a victim of the economy, a victim of a bad relationship, a victim of you name it. But I want to know what your stories and attitudes are around these areas, these facts that you have. Again, I want you to take time with this. What stories are you telling other people? And what stories are you telling yourself? Right? That's key. The stories you're telling yourself are dictating the way that you are handling this gap that you're facing. Now, remember, you have a gap because you haven't got there. You don't know how to get there. Otherwise, you'd be there. There wouldn't be a gap, right? If you if you're $1 million earner, in other words, your take home is $1 million to say gross, right? And you want to get to 2 million, there's a gap. Otherwise, you'd already be there. But if your take home's like 100,000 and you want to get to 1 million, well, there's a gap there too. Otherwise, you'd be there. You'd already be taking home 1 million. You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing. And a lot of this has to do with our stories and attitudes. So let's look at a couple examples here that I just threw on here. I'm going to stick to health and relationships for us for now. So again, this guy's 20 pounds overweight. He said, hey, look, I had kids 15 years ago, and it's just harder now for me to get into shape. I'm a business owner. I'm a father. I'm in my mid 40s. This is just the way it is for guys in my situation, right? This is the kind of guy that says, hey, the dad bod's sexy, right? And dad bod is in, right? He's telling this story to himself over and over again, or it's just hard. I'm a father. Come on. All the other fathers at the baseball games or whatever, they're all fat and overweight. So 20 pounds, what's the big deal? And then relationships, again, he's saying, hey, look, it's my stories and attitude. All my wife does is complain, right? If she just stopped her bitching and stopped nagging me and realized that I've been busting my butt to give her everything she asked for, she should try to be nice once in a while, right? These are stories and attitudes. You can kind of get the idea here. And I would expand upon these as much as you can, right? Use extra paper if you can, or whatever it is. Get it all out. Get every story you can. If your wife's being a bitch, write it down, right? If she should be treating you better, write it down, right? Whatever your story is, even if you're like, yeah, it's not true. I know it's really not all her fault, but even in your head, I want you to write it down because we're going to excavate some of this a little bit later. So now what we're going to talk about are two other things, right? Now we want to know what's working and what's not working. And as you can see, we're looking at health first, right? We're just going to take health and relationships moving forward. And I'm just going to highlight these for my examples going through this gap training as we get through it. So again, this guy's saying, look, I'm 20 pounds overweight. Those are the facts. Can't really dispute them. What's working? Well, I have exercise equipment. So that's a good thing because we want to look at the positive too. There's positives in this. If there weren't any positives, you wouldn't still be in this situation, meaning you would figure a way out, right? Because the pain would be too great. So there's some positives. And I walk a few times a week. Okay, cool. And this person might even go on to say, by being a little bit overweight, it prevents me from cheating on my wife. That's a really common subconscious thing for men, right? It's keeping him grounded from doing things that, he doesn't want to do, but there's less temptation, right? A guy that's in super great shape is going to get a lot more offers from women than a guy who's not. Just plain and simple. And what's not working? Well, my workouts are inconsistent at best. I eat too much, and too much sugar and junk food. I don't walk enough or push myself hard enough. Well, that's pretty clear. So that's just not working for him, right? And relationships, right? Going back to there, what's working? Well, it doesn't sound like much. It's like the kid's schedule's working, right? Okay, that's great. But what's not working for him in this and the facts is we don't have sex enough. And when we do, it's not good sex. We argue all the time. We're not connected. So you can expand upon these, but you're getting the idea, right? What's working? What is working and what's allowing you to do this? What's allowing you to stay in a crappy relationship? Maybe it's, hey, my marriage looks good on Instagram and Facebook. My family thinks we're great. So that's working. We look like the perfect family. That's working, right? These are all things that are working for you, even though we both know they're not. I think you get the idea of where I'm going with this here and trying to get that through. So now we're going to get into a little more fun. This is what I love to do. In business and every other area of my life, every of those personality tests, I'm off the charts in the visionary section of it, right? So this is where I spend a lot of my time when I was a consultant for businesses as well as coaching. What I want you to do is imagine you have a magic wand, a crystal ball, actually. And in that crystal ball, you can look at what's going to happen 12 months from now. Here's the trick. You can have anything you want, anything. So it gets to be perfect 12 months from now, so to speak, right? You get to be in a place that you want to be in. So I want you to write down where you're going to be 12 months from now in each of the 5 territories, right? Self, health, wealth, relationships, and business. Write down where you're going to be 12 months from now. Because right now, the facts, you're deactivated, right? As a man, you're just deactivated. And I've been there, I get it. But I want to know when you're activated, what are you going to be 12 months from now? So let's look at that. Let's look at our examples again. So 12 months from now, this person, he's going to weigh 175 pounds. I don't know what that is in stones or kilos. Sorry, guys. From my boys from the Europe or anywhere else outside the US. But we're going to use 175 pounds for now. He can see his abs now. Cool. I can play with my kids without getting winded. That's cool, right? That to me is even better. Right now, you have a solid reason of why you want to do that. One, looking hot is good, but being able to play with your kids to me is much better. And then relationships. My wife and I have passionate sex 5 times a week. We are the it couple that everyone wants to be. She looks at me with love, respect, and admiration. Man, I hear this. We hear this a lot for guys that go through the activation method. At the end of this, their activation method, a lot of times what they'll say is, man, my wife looks at me again like she looked at me when we first got married. And we ask, okay, what did she look at you like? How did she look at you when you first got married, man? And they'll say, man, with love, respect, and admiration are the 3 most common things. Like she looks up to me again. So this is what this guy wants, right? He wants that 12 months from now, and can imagine how different it is, right? He's got a gap where he is now. Fact, my wife and I have grown apart, and we're talking about getting a divorce. Boom, there's a fact. 12 months from now, my wife and I have passionate sex 5 times a week. We're the it couple, right? Who doesn't want to be the it couple, right? She looks at me with love, respect, and admiration. That's a big gap there. That gap is growing apart when you look at it. It's pretty far apart. But we see it all the time. Again, we're going back into how does it feel, right? But now I want to know, how does the 12 months from now feel? I don't want to know just about how the facts feel, but how does making this change feel for you, right? If you make this change, like this gentleman does, 20 pounds overweight, or his wife and him about to get a divorce, to going back to passionate sex and being lean, how is it going to make you feel? Well, he puts down here the example: electric, alive. I feel like this would get my mojo back, right? And then in the relationship category, it feels far off, as being honest here, but this would make me feel like I am the man. I would have everything I've always wanted, basically. So get clear on this, guys, and you want to get as clear as you possibly can. Now, in this example, I could have wrote paragraphs based on what I've heard men talk about and what I've experienced myself, because I've been through this. But I want to give you just some short examples. But I want you to take more time doing this. All right. And then again, we really want to emphasize the story portion. Okay, so now we've got that. We've got our 12 months from now, and we know the facts. I want to know where you're going to be 90 days from now. In your pursuit of your 1 year, where would you be? And think of this as a milestone on the road. So in the US, right, I've driven across the United States 3 times in 1 year. Crazy, right? In 1 year. It's a long drive for those that have never done it or have never been to the US. But I've done it 3 times. And so what you learn is along the way, there's certain milestones. So if I want to get from New Hampshire to California or Oregon, which I did, I know, and I want to do it within 5 days, right? Or 4 days or whatever it is. So let's just say 5 days, because I did that once. Then I know I need to be a certain distance, right? A certain distance away from New Hampshire on my way to Oregon, to Bend, Oregon, where I was at the time. And this is the same thing, right? So a quarter of the way through, right? 90 days, a quarter of the way for a year. Where do you have to be in order to reasonably know that you're on track to hitting your 1 year goal? Just reasonably, right? So again, health. I know 90 days, this person, they know 90 days from now, they have to work out at least 5 days a week with weights, right? That's realistic. Walk 6 days per week, and they're now down 6 pounds, right? Okay, great. So how about your relationships? Well, we know where you want to go. And said within 90 days that he and his wife would have gone on 10 dates, right? Almost a date a week. He's giving himself a buffer because the first 2 weeks might be a little shaky if they're talking about divorce, right? It might be a little bit harder to get her to go on a date until you've changed some things, or she sees the real you. You've been activated, as we call it. I got a babysitter who comes in one night a week, right? Covers the date night. Got to have it though. And we have sex 3 times a week. Well, if you're having sex 3 times a week, 90 days from now, and you're continuing this journey, I'm going to guess that you're on the road for not only having 5 days a week, but hopefully passionate sex 5 days a week. Because remember, he doesn't want to just get laid. He wants to have passionate sex here, that's a big difference, as all of us know. So now let's talk about the gap, right? There's a gap here. There's a gap between where you are today and your 90 days. So how do we fill that gap, right? How do we fill it? Well, I know that in order to get to the 90 days, he's going to be joining a gym and hiring a trainer, right? Think of that as building a bridge from point A, where you are now, to point B, where you want to be. There's a bridge. That bridge is the gap. We're going to fill it. This guy's building a bridge by joining a gym and getting a trainer. No better way to achieve your goals in shortened time than hire somebody who's been there and done that and knows how to help people just like you. There's just no better way. Business, any area of your 5 territories. Here, he chose to do the activation method, right? Obviously, I'm biased, but I wouldn't be involved in anything that I didn't think was the best. So that's what he chose to do. Chose to sign up for the activation method for what he's doing. Now, what I want you to do is spend some time, right, looking at obstacles that you might face, right? Because if I go back here, boop, and I'm getting from 20 pounds overweight to 90 days, right? Working out, leaning down to 12 months, down to 175, there's a good chance I'm going to face some obstacles. Or my wife and I are talking about getting a divorce, right? And I know that this is the gap here. What are obstacles I'm going to face in the gap as I'm building this bridge, right? My wife won't want me spending time on a personal development program, right? Maybe she doesn't want you to spend time on the activation method, right? Because she doesn't like you right now. Your wife doesn't want you spending money on the gym. Or maybe your kids eat a lot of snacks. You'll be tempted to eat them, right? In this example, you need to find out what possible obstacles you might face are. Chances are these are obstacles you faced in the past. So you know these obstacles well. Okay. Write them all down, because without the optics on the obstacles, it's hard to dodge them. But it's like playing a video game, right? If you guys played like Super Mario Brothers as kids on the Nintendo or whatever, I'm putting myself in the age. If you know the next move before it happens, you can shift, you can dodge it, right? It's like if you ever done choreographed more type martial art movements as you're training, you know, like the guy's going to punch to the right, then he's going to dodge, then he's going to sweep around. You can move with that a little bit. So you need to know what those obstacles are so you can face them, right? So write them all down as many as you can. But of course, I want to know the positives. When you fill this gap, what will you be? I'm choosing this, not what you'll have, but what you'll be. Right? Finally able to take the power back in my home and in my life. Get my mojo back, this guy would have said. Bring the fire back into my relationship. Get my wife to look at me with admiration and respect again. Be in a loving and healthy relationship that I deserve. And there's dots there and ellipses, because let's be real. I want you to know everything you want. The reason we do this is because you're going to hit obstacles. This is going to happen. And when you hit obstacles here, right, the key is going to be remembering these things. Because when you hit something, so let's say your wife gives you a shit test, right? Or your coach in the activation method is pushing you, right? Because that's what you do. And pushing you to be the man that they see. It's easy to give up and throw in the towel. But if you go back to this, you go, wait a minute, get my mojo back. That sounds pretty good. All right, I'm going to hit the gym again. Fire back in my relationship. I want that. Have my wife actually look at me without asking. Just when I come home, she looks at me with admiration and respect. Cool. I can carve out 2 days a week for the activation method. Like, that's easy now, right? So you get where I'm going with this. You need to have this so when you hit those walls, you can push through, though. Now, if you've heard me ever heard me on a podcast or anything else, I'm always talking about one thing, right? Take massive action, right? What is the massive action you're going to take this week? Not next week, not next month, this week, right? And so I want you to have your 90 days from now, because that's what we're working on. We're not working on the 1 year. We're just working on this 90 days, this 1 quarter. Now, you're going to have self, health, wealth, relationships, and business filled out. So actions are going to be different. I'm only giving you 2 examples here. So in health, boom. All right, I'm joining the gym. I'm going to prepare my meals for the week, and I'm going to block off my calendar, non-negotiable, to get my workouts in, right? With my trainer or otherwise. Boom. I'm going to do that right now. Do it. Cool. Relationships. I'm going to join the activation method. I'm going to call John, made up name, and see who he's using for babysitting. And I'm going to sit down with my wife and tell her what I'm doing. Now, notice I didn't say sit down with my wife and ask her if I can do what I'm doing. I didn't say that. This is about leading in the relationship. I hear that a lot from guys. There's guys that go through the Mr. Nice Guy methodology of, oh, I want to make sure it's okay if I do this, whether it be the gym or, any of these areas or categories. Now, I'm not saying be a jerk and don't do anything drastic, but you want to tell her what you're doing as you're leading, especially if you're in this idea that you might be getting a divorce. This is definitely the time to step up. So guys, I'm running through this really quickly. We do a much, much longer and more in-depth process, but I wanted to keep this down to less than 30 minutes if I could. The key is to find the gaps, right? And then fill the gap in. It's really that simple. But when I say that, it's really hard. And the hard part is doing this worksheet, filling it out. Now, we put together a worksheet for you. You have it, right? I'm not asking for anything. If you don't have it for some reason, you're getting this on a replay or what have you, ask for it. But again, you can just use an Excel spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, fill it out on a piece of paper. The key is doing the work, right? In fitness, I can't do the reps for you. My fitness coach can't do it. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you can't do the moves for me, the transitions or anything else. I can't do the work for you. You got to do the work. And you have to be determined and you have to want it bad enough to do it. So as always, guys, I'd love to hear what this does for you. If you're watching this live, like I said, put a comment below. Let me know how this is working for you as you go through this. Let me know your insights you're getting. This helps me, right? Let me know if it was helpful, and I'll do more of these, and I'll get them out there. If you're getting this on recording or what have you, just drop me a line, right? I'd love to see. I'm easy to find all over social media or anywhere else. And for the alumni guys, I love you guys, and I'll see you soon. But I'll tell you one thing, man. You got one shot at this game we call life, one, and this is your shot. So take a good one. Find the gap, fill the gap, and you'll bridge where you are. Take it easy.